How's it going, people? Now, I've done a lot of go-karting in my life, even to a point where I was either going to do motocross or go-karting as my main motorsport, as I couldn't afford to do both, so I went down the motocross route and not the go-karting route. But I still stuck to doing as much go-karting as I could over the last 25 years of being alive. So with me wanting to get my actual car racing license this year or next year, I thought it's probably about time I start doing some actual racing on four wheels. So myself, Aldas, who you've seen plenty of times before on this channel, and my good friend Ed went to Rye House, one of the oldest go-karting circuits in the UK, to do an actual 45-minute long race. Of course, not in aid of a championship, anyone can go and book to do it. It's a 15-minute quali, 45-minute race, nice and easy, but it had some slightly better karters there than at some of the other places that I've been karting at beforehand. And the benefit of having 3 different people there is that we could also use 3 different cameras, so you'll get 3 different perspectives across this race. So sit back, relax, and watch this mayhem unfold. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoy it, subscribe as well if you're new, but without further ado, let's get into the video. So as I mentioned, the first part of this whole session was a 15-minute practice qualifying, and by that I mean your fastest lap across those 15 minutes would set your position on the grid. And here you can see Aldas basically on the grass going past these guys here, me coming to the inside as well, just trying to find ourselves some space to get in some faster laps. Very sketchy people just coming across, everyone getting warmed up in the karts, warming up the tyres, all that good stuff as well. And then I'm thinking to send it up the inside of this guy right here, take the little inside and just follow Aldas through as best as I can. It did get a bit sketchy at times. Here you can see Ed locking the brakes on really hard there in order to not T-bone that person who had just crashed. But in general, it was a pretty chill session, although I didn't at any point really feel like I got very comfortable with the track. I'd had a look at a whole bunch of track maps and I'd watched a whole bunch of tutorials online to tell me exactly how to take the lines on this track. I just didn't feel like I could get it. But here you can see I am on the rear end of Aldas, trying to get myself some space. The whole idea of quality is just to find yourself some space to get into and start to pull away and give yourself as much of a gap as possible to get yourself a clean lap in. It's just one clean lap is all that you need, and Aldas very kindly actually points me through here. You can see that I'm going a little bit quicker behind him, so he lets me go through, and then he proceeds to follow me, which is quite good because I get a good perspective of what I was doing wrong. You can see already on that corner I was sliding around like an idiot, meaning that Aldas could very easily catch me on the straight. Although he did actually let off the throttle a little bit there and give me a little bit of space, which is quite kind of him. Coming through this corner here, this is a really cool corner, double apexing. I'm not doing it at all correct there. This corner much better though, aiming for that inside and trying to use as much of the curb as possible. Coming across here then, backmarker slightly in the way that's going to jeopardize the lap. You can hear me actually whistle at them to try and get them out of the way, and they actually hit into me there. So Aldas actually gets back through and then very kindly points me back through again, which he didn't need to do because we were probably around about the same pace at this point in the session at least. But yeah, very kind of him there. And then I'm able to kind of carry on and enjoy a little bit of free space to try and put in a lap. This bit here going over that curb as much as possible, and then here running very, very wide. That is definitely not the correct line there. As I said, not feeling comfortable, first time on the track, and yeah, just not really getting it how I want it to be. It wasn't just me that was struggling though. Here you can see Aldas is right behind me coming through, I think that's turn 4 or turn 5, and then coming in here, there's a backmarker who slows down in front of me to take that corner. Aldas doesn't really take the right evasive there and ends up spinning. So unfortunate, but yeah, everyone was having a bit of trouble in this session. But ultimately, all we really care about when it comes to the qualifying is how fast the laps were. So here you can see through turn 1, I actually had to overtake someone down there on the bottom screen, which puts Aldas very slightly ahead. It's not really an excuse because obviously I had plenty of other laps to do fast laps, but this was my fastest. Aldas is ever so slightly ahead coming out of this corner right here. You can see he gets a much better drive onto the straight. I go quite wide. Ed is lagging very slightly behind, but not hugely behind. Aldas entering this corner slightly before I do and gets out with a really nice tight line, which I don't quite manage to achieve. And here he is literally only just ahead of me coming into this final corner, but he gets a much better drive out of the corner where I'm slightly struggling, and Ed gets a bit of slide out of that final corner instead. And as we come through the finish line, you can see Aldas did a 43.770, I did a 44 flat, and then Ed did a 45.671. So this sets us up to go down to the grid and find out our positions. So here you can see the moment that I find out that I'm in P2, and that means that probably Aldas is P1, and obviously as you can see on screen there he is, with my good friend Ed starting in P11. And then here you can see Ed sitting there in P11 as I drive through, and then Aldas follows on. And yeah, I think he found that quite humorous, these two random utes in basically the same outfit, same helmets, cruising through to P1 and 2.
Look at him go. Is that 1-2?
And this is the first time Aldas has beaten me in a quali session, so of course he had to give me some stick for it on the start line. So then, here we are on board with Aldas for the start of the race. As the lights go red, he's ready to go, and he gets a good jump off the line, and so do I, and I think I'm alongside him, but then I realise the first corner is a very long right-hander, and I am on the outside. I need to get across, but P3 comes straight past me there on the inside, and I think P5 as well gets through in order to push me back to P4, and yeah, that guy there on the outside of me almost gets through as well. So yes, a pretty disastrous first corner for me. Let's have a look at it from Ed's perspective, because he also had the benefit of being on that inside. And so you can see here, starting in P11, he gets a good jump, just as good as the people around him. The guy in front of him gets an absolute stormer of a start, but then he pulls straight up into P10 and then up into P9 as well. So gaining those 2 positions literally in that first corner just by the merit of being on the inside. And then you can see here the absolute melee of drivers going around these first few corners, everyone battling for position, trying to find their spot, trying to find where they're comfortable, and Ed here clattering into the back of the number 4 karts there as well. But coming into this section here, the pylon section as it's called, he's in a reasonable position. He's gained 2 spots. I'd be pretty pleased with that. Certainly better than my first lap, losing those 2 positions instead. So here, coming around the final corner on that first lap, tucked in nicely behind the number 2 kart. By the way, I have clocked that my angle here is slightly too low. Obviously, I'm dropping my head to get that human DRS through into this corner here. So yeah, with the angle being slightly low, I need to mess with that next time around, because Aldas' angle is actually really good from the top of his helmet. I'll use that in future. But going back into this anyway, coming through this corner here, trying to get as tight as possible. I'm clearly faster than the 2 and the 13 kart up in front of me, but I really need to be, oh sorry, the 16 kart up in front of me, but I need to be really careful about where I make the moves, and I'm trying to minimize the time loss to Aldas. As you can see, he's already getting away up front there, and I'm starting to make a few little mistakes as I try and get past these 2 in front of me who are reasonably fast. They're both only about 2 to 3 tenths off me in the qualifying. Obviously, I felt like I was pretty slow in quali anyway, but still, either way, getting a better run onto this straight. And this is where I started to realize that I maybe didn't have the straight line speed. So as you can see, the number 2 car at the top end, not the bottom end so much, but the top end, started to get away from me going down that straight, even though I was foot to the floor. But as he went slightly wide, I was able to cut through on the inside and gain back that position and get back into P3. Now I got to chase down that number 16 car, as I mentioned, pushing very hard here, keeping those lines slightly tighter, but just leaving the car on the edge of its grip to try and maximize my speed. I can feel like I'm fast in the corner, but again, as you can see here, he's escaping from me in a straight line. I'm slightly worried about my kart stop speed, or maybe I'm just a very heavy individual. I do weigh 85 kilograms, it is what it is. Always that racing driver excuse ready to go. But obviously faster in these corners here, getting a better run onto this straight, and very slightly tap the back of the 16 kart, give him a little wave to say that I'm sorry, and that obviously put me slower onto this straight, so I didn't quite have the opportunity to come back past him. Now it's just a case of trying to settle into the groove, see if I can get past 16 and then go on that hunt for Aldas, although I am already at this point slightly worried I'm not going to have that straight line speed to be able to catch him. So coming to the inside here, I think he kind of let me off there. I know he's been karting before, this guy, so he obviously let me have a go. He had a karting race suit on, so I think he just let me go up the inside, minimise the amount of time lost for him, and let me try and make my moves to catch up to Aldas. But initially, I was not catching Aldas. This is lap 6 for Aldas. I was only a tenth faster than him on lap 5 and a tenth faster as well on this lap, lap 6. And then on lap 7, he put 4 tenths between us again. So he was clearly on something today. He was going pretty quick, and I didn't quite have that pace to match him. But coming through this section, then you can see he's doing reasonably well. He's keeping the lines nice and tight. A little bit maybe too much slide, but then who am I to judge, considering he is doing a faster lap time? Not on this lap, but on the next lap anyway. You can see he goes a little bit wide there, runs slightly wide out onto the runoff area. Here, very good, going across nice and easy, getting that apex. A bit too much slide there as well. This is what I mean about that straight line speed though, because if you compare this to my laps that I'll show you in a second, I was really quite chilled through there, didn't really have any of the slide, but as you can see, Aldas got that really good top end and he's coming through here really fast. I think his first corner was a particularly quick corner. Coming through here, he's lifting his hand off because he's apologising to going a little bit aggressive on that back marker there. Coming through this section, again, great line choice. I love the way that he sort of slices across that really well. I found that corner really difficult. As you can see, they're taking his hands off the wheel. A whole hour-long race was actually really tough to do. Genuinely, 45 minutes, an hour total of karting. It was tough on the old arms, and I think Aldas, given he's not got as much experience of karting as I do, I think he ended up yeah, finding it quite tough on the old arms. But yeah, coming across there to do a very quick lap. I think that was a 43.70 on that lap, so matching his quali pace. So with these absolute stormers of laps in mind, I really had to start pushing, because at this point Aldas had around about a 2.9 second gap over me, so I really had to find some pace in order to make this into a race. As you can see him there up ahead of me, just on the left hand side of your screen every so often, or yeah, just there turning around that corner in front of us, and I really needed to get on it. And there's a little bit too much slide, I think, coming into some of these corners, but the laps you're about to see, this one here, lap 9, was a 43.9, and the following ones are a 43.8, a 43.8 again, and then a 43.6, which is the fastest lap of the race up until this point. So yes, trying to use as much of these curbs as possible, not that one though, because that one is very sketchy, and then not running too wide there to carry that momentum onto the main straight. Now you can see Aldas is right there. I am literally catching him only by the teeniest amount per lap. So yeah, as I said, 2.9 seconds, around about 2.7 at this point after that lap, just about 2/10 up on him, just doing my absolute hardest to try and catch up. And every so often you get a little bit of spaces on the track where you can actually compare where you are lap on lap with the previous person. So I knew I was catching, but I knew that it was only just. I was really honestly pushing very hard here to try and catch up, but also obviously trying to keep it as on the straight and narrow as possible, because with go-karting it's very easy to over push the kart, and particularly with these ones that have literally no bottom end, if you do end up making a mistake and having to accelerate from scratch again, you lose way more time than you could possibly imagine. It is just ridiculous. I'm sure any of you who's watching this who's done go-karting before can attest. So as I mentioned, that last lap was a 43.8, and as you can see visibly, I am closer to Aldas. I'm really getting that gain on him, and it's given me a lot of confidence now to start really pushing some of these corners and to really start aiming to catch up to him now. Having been grinding for 10 laps already to catch up to this guy, just being able to see him in my immediate distance is much better than him being off in the far distance, I suppose. So coming through this section here again, as I discussed, I think he was sliding a little bit too much out of that last corner, which gave me a little bit of momentum as the straight. It made me always think I was a little bit closer to him than I really was, but then by the end of the straight, he'd always gapped a tiny bit more based on that top end speed. So yeah, not ideal. But then coming through this corner then, I really like this double apex. This is the 43.6 that I managed to pull. I didn't quite get the double apex, so it's quite interesting that I still managed to get a good lap out of this one. Obviously, I think that corner was much better. I got much better turn and stayed a little bit tighter there, and then came flat through this one, really clipped that apex really nicely and had a lot more pace out of it. That corner was definitely my Achilles heel on the lap. Coming through here as well was always a bit difficult, but I think on this lap I just kept that a little bit more precise and a little bit less sketchy than on some other laps. Coming through here very nicely too, very good through that bit there. I thought that was actually quite nice. And then coming down the final straight, you can see I'm that little bit closer again to Aldas, so really mounting that charge and trying to catch up to him. But even though I'd gotten that gap down from 3 seconds to 2 seconds, I still had a massive amount of work to go. So here we are on lap 25. I still haven't caught Aldas at this point, but we're watching Ed as he sits in P10. He's lost a position, but here he is about to overtake 2 people in one go up the inside there. Very nice opportunistic driving by Ed. Now you may be wondering why you're not seeing very much from Aldas' perspective, and that is because his camera stopped recording about 10 laps into the race, quite annoyingly, but you have me and Ed instead. Coming across the line now, I am just 1.4 seconds behind him. I have absolutely grinded for this, and now he's getting slightly held up by these back markers, enabling me to really get onto his rear end. As you can see here, I use this opportunity to jump in to get up behind him as he gets stuck behind the number 7 carts. We're starting to get up to some faster people, and as we go past him, I suddenly realise, I look over, and it's Ed. It's us lapping Ed, and I think he was a bit confused why we were here. So yeah, all of a sudden it's us on Ed, and so I'll jump to his perspective in a second. But what I wanted to show you is that coming through here, Aldas knows I'm on him, and he's getting a little bit flustered. Look at that. He goes on the inside, hits that curb, loses the momentum, but then he very nearly puts me into that wall. So let's jump over and look at it from Ed's perspective. So once again, from Ed's perspective, you can just about see that Aldas goes over that curb, looks right because he thinks I might be going up his inside, but I kept my momentum to the outside and very nearly hit that wall. Luckily, nothing went wrong there. Didn't quite have the straight line speed still, even though Aldas had such a bad exit to actually get past him. As you can see here, I'm all over the back of him. We'll stay on board with Ed as we do this because he gets a great view of the action. I'm trying every line I can. Aldas is getting very defensive. I'm going tighter, I'm going wider, whatever I can do to try and get around him. Here you can see I get a better exit. Clearly, But unfortunately, in a straight line, Aldas is just that little bit faster, and so he's able to pull away a tiny bit in that little straight there. Here coming through again, right on his tail, literally right behind him, and then coming onto the straight again. I'm actually just nose to tail with him, and as you can see here, we are starting to leave Ed behind, so we'll switch back over to myself. And as you can see, end of the straight, Aldas has gapped me a little bit. It's always the end of the straight where he seems to get the most speed difference. So coming through that first corner again, right on his tail, staying with him right through here, coming in here again, really good line through there. You can see once again I'm on his rear end, trying my absolute best, and I got a good line through there. Unfortunately, I knew I had to get as much speed as possible through there, which meant that I had to basically gamble on where he was going to end up, and sadly that was he turned in slightly tighter than I think I expected him to, which meant that I hit the back of him. So entirely my fault, but it slowed me up enough to give him a little bit of respite. Now if we skip forward ever so slightly to the start of lap 30, there's a very important part of the race. You can see Aldas there, because at the inside of that back marker, kart number 10, he's not pleased, hand up in the air. He's very disappointed in Aldas's aggressive maneuver there, but Aldas, I thought that was pretty fair. Number 10 not happy, he goes for it. He's trying to catch back up to Aldas and sends himself into the realm. Now remember that, because that's important for the next part of this race. Skipping ahead then to lap number 36, here you can see Aldas is just a little bit in front of me over there on the left hand side. I've been chasing him for quite a long time. It's been about between 1 and 3 seconds, I would say. I was chasing him according to the lap graph, and now coming through this section, the kart number 10 gets let out of the pits because he's been in a bit of trouble, I suppose, for violations, and he punts me out of the way and then comes up my inside. So very kind of him there to do that. I then try to get him back and very nicely pull the old switchback maneuver on him. Clearly, I think he was upset with people wearing white helmets, because obviously Aldas and I have the exact same helmet. So now we're coming towards the climax of the race. You join me on lap 45, chasing after Aldas again. I've brought that time down from around about the 3-second mark to just over a second at this point, and I am really chasing hard. These laps are good laps. I do a 43.6, a 43.6 again, a 43.5, which is my fastest in the session, and then a 44 flat, which is just as a result of a back marker. So as you can see, Aldas is just there. I am almost within touching distance, but I still need a little bit more pace out of my car, a little bit more pace out of myself in order to get there. You can see someone in the barrier, I think, just there around that corner. Coming through here then, just doing everything I can, getting slightly better line choice than Aldas. He's getting a little bit sloppy at this point. You can see he's made a few tiny mistakes there, which enable me to catch right up to the back of him. Obviously on the straight, I'm not anywhere near him. He seems to pull away a little bit more at the end of that straight. But yeah, you can see I'm getting much closer lap on lap. So honestly, the feeling in the kart at this point, I was grinding. We're a long way into the race at this point. I have no idea where the end is, and I'm just praying that I have enough time to catch Aldas and make the overtaking maneuver that I so need. But he's done an absolutely excellent job to carry on through this race at the speed he has been doing, and to keep me at bay every time I've come for an attack. So I'm pushing and I'm pushing and I'm pushing. This lap, as I said, is a 43.6. I'm getting the lines better at this point. He's kind of given up on some of the curbs, which you definitely need to get good lap times. Unfortunately, again, this straight is just not my... This straight is definitely screwing me up a little bit, but I'm fast enough elsewhere. And this is my fastest lap of the day, so let's talk through it. Good double apex through there. As you can see, get that nice and tight, and then tight on this as well, keeping it right in towards the tyres on the inside. Here again, hooking it up nicely, getting on the throttle early, and same again here, getting that apex as good as possible, not hitting the curb because it unsettles the kart, not going too wide there either, because you can go wide and you can get the pace, but if you don't need to go wide, don't do it. Coming through here again, I could have been a bit closer in on the inside on that left-hander, but the right-hander was okay. I kept it nice and tight, went far right, went across that curb. Aldas did it too nicely that time, and I got a slightly better line through that corner. As you can see, I got close to the apex. Now I'm pushing down that straight, trying my best, coming in for a 43.5, which is just a tenth off of Aldas's fastest lap time of the evening, which is a 43.4, so fair play to him for getting that fastest lap time. Now lap 48 was slightly slow, obviously, as I mentioned, because we came across these back markers, but I am right on Aldas's tail. Even before we got to the back markers, I'm right there, and I'm trying to apply that pressure to see if I can either force an error or force an overtake. It's going to have to be in the corners, because I'm not going to make it on the straight, let's be real. It's going to have to be on one of these corners. A Hail Mary move up the inside is what I'm thinking, thinking it's the only way I'm going to make it. This backmarker slightly slows up Aldas as well. You can see Aldas tries to go for the move but doesn't quite make it. I got the inside, a much better run than Aldas, but as discussed, not enough pace, just not enough straight line speed. You can see he gets up to that speed better and starts to pull away as well, so definitely struggling there. And on this inside, I think it's all going well. I get a little bump from the outside, and look who it is. It's number 10 kart again. He's bumped me out of the way and he's going for Aldas. He's gunning for him and he misses, takes out the other guy. I take evasive and I lose around about 4 to 5 seconds to Aldas. All of those laps of hard work and graft to catch up to Aldas, and that is what happens. The 10 kart jumps in, gets involved once again, and puts me 4 to 5 seconds behind him. I was quite displeased. And as a result of his actions, he got pulled off the track again. I don't know if you can spot it, but on the sign it says come in number 10 once again. And as I go past him, I give him a little bit of attitude and voice my displeasure, because honestly, the amount of work and effort it had been to catch Aldas, because he was on a really good pace, it was just so gutting to suddenly lose that as a result of someone else who you'd literally just lapped. I literally lapped him. If you look at the footage, I lapped him about maybe 10-15 seconds beforehand, and he just stays with me on the straight because I haven't got that straight line speed, bumps me out of the way, goes for Aldas, and yeah, ends up screwing up the good battle we had. And I'm pretty sure the marshals were watching that battle as well, hence they so quickly pulled him off the track, because I think they were annoyed that they lost the chance to watch a nice battle between myself and Aldas. But counting my blessings for a moment, at least I didn't get taken out as badly as Ed did. He comes into this corner, passes the 14 kart, and then gets absolutely punted to the realm by kart number 14. Not good at all, and this definitely had a big impact on his race, because as I said, the karts have no bottom end. He couldn't go anywhere, couldn't drive, and that meant that he lost around about 8 seconds. And now that was him getting lapped, but immediately after that he comes into this section here, and alongside comes the 9 kart on the final lap of the race. Number 9, he didn't realise, but was actually fighting him for position. So Ed actually lost a position, went from P8 to P9 as a result of that impact by that back marker. Not ideal. But yes, in my case, of course, I knew my race was basically over at that point. I wasn't going to be able to get Aldas now. It was unfortunate. It was very unfortunate, but Aldas did an absolutely great race, and I felt very pleased to have competed in such a long event, my longest ever and my first ever sort of endurance focused go-karting race. So yeah, really happy. Obviously 45 minutes is quite a long time to be in the kart, quite tough on the old forearms, etc. So well done to Aldas, and let's have a look at those results. Yes, as you can see there, it is Aldas and then myself, a 5-second gap between us, so it didn't really change too much after the crash or the incident. And then we have Ed back there in P9. Well done to Kart 2 as well for coming back from P5 to P3. That was all done in that sort of first few laps, so really decent there. So nothing taken away from Aldas. He had really good pace on the day, but now to take something away from him, here's a list of my racing driver excuses. So number 1, number 10 ruined my race. Number 2, I'm over 15 kilograms heavier than Aldas and clearly had less straight line speed as a result. Number 3, I was hanging a bit as I went out for a bring your own bev curry the night before with my mates. Number 4, I was really tired because I had to drive him to the venue while he came into it fresh. Number 5, my kart was slower. Number 6, my tyres were worse. Number 7, my kart was overfueled. And number 8, he'd been karting a week before, whereas I hadn't been in a few weeks, so I was rusty. Hopefully that's enough excuses. But no, being serious, he drove really well. It was good to race against him, and I'm looking forward to more in the future. And so as a bit of bonus content, Ed asked me to walk you through one of his laps. Now in T1, you'll see he goes in really tight, and I think that even though it probably used to be faster, I don't think it is anymore. The karts are too slow. Get it a little bit wider and sweep across it. This one here, you can go much tighter and just shorten the line. And then this one here, you need to be turning early in order to get that kart turned in as much as possible, because he understeers quite wide and then goes back across. In reality, the key thing that Ed could learn is to let the kart run a little bit wider and spend less time with the wheels screeching. You want less screech and more just traction and momentum. So it's a big momentum play, I think, that would help Ed get faster. Here as well, he takes that curb but doesn't really open up this corner. He doesn't use it all the way out to the curb, and there is no point using that inside curb on the previous corner if you're not going to open out the curb on the exit, which is the whole kind of point, is getting that sort of straight line through and then opening up that next corner. So a few little bits here and there that Ed could do to really get a whole second back that he's currently missing between himself and Aldas and I. But that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed going around and racing. I really did have a lot of fun. Massive thanks to Aldas and Ed for coming along and being great sports for the session, and then also a massive thank you to the patrons for their continued support, because those guys are absolutely killing it. Also a huge thanks to you guys as well for watching. Hopefully I'll get you guys out to do some go-karting with me soon. If you enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like button, as these videos are obviously a little bit more experimental than my other types of content. Subscribe as well if you're into this kind of stuff, but as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.